Tonight, breaking news on a deadly high-speed crash in Melbourne's east. Details live.
Melbourne taxi drivers threatening to leave tennis fans stranded as the fare fight escalates.
The Andrews government under pressure to refund $100 million in My Key money.
A wild brawl spills onto Chapel Street in front of stunned partygoers.
The PM drops a big hint on mending ties with China.
And Melbourne makes its mark as tens of thousands celebrate midsummer and the Lunar New Year.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Rebecca Madden and Mike Amor.
Good evening. We begin tonight with breaking news on a deadly high-speed crash in Melbourne's east.
Estelle Griepink has the latest from the Royal Melbourne Hospital. And Estelle, one person has died, 3 others suffered serious injuries.
Good evening, Mike. Well, 2 of those people, 2 men, are being treated here at the Royal Melbourne Hospital tonight. That's after being involved in this horror crash at Park Orchards that has sadly killed one of their friends. What we know so far is that 4 people, 3 men and a woman, were travelling on Stinstons Road when for some reason the driver has lost control and hit a tree. Emergency services were met with a confronting scene when they arrived around 2:30 this afternoon. They rushed to provide CPR to the female passenger, but sadly she could not be saved. Another passenger was injured and taken to the Alfred. Police say the group were aged in their late teens to early 20s, but at this stage they're still investigating what caused the crash. Now, this comes after 2 other fatal crashes on Victorian roads today. 2 people died in separate incidents in Timboon and Kyalla. And sadly, that brings our road toll for 2023 to 24 lives lost. That's 8 more than this time last year. Mike?
OK, Estelle, thank you. Homicide detectives have just released a man arrested over the death of a woman in Lilydale. Police and paramedics were called to the John Street unit after the discovery of a 34-year-old woman's body. Detectives examined the autopsy findings late this afternoon and have concluded the death is not suspicious. Furious Melbourne taxi drivers are threatening to leave tennis fans stranded as the fight over fares escalates. Beth and Yeoman has tonight's developments from Melbourne Park. And Beth, cabbies are set to boycott the Australian Open.
Mike, bombshell leaked text messages have uncovered a plot by taxi drivers encouraging their colleagues to ignore tennis fans, potentially leaving them stranded. It's the latest tactic in a bitter feud between cabbies and passengers over soaring prices. Games on, meters off. Some taxi drivers are accused of squeezing every last dollar out of tennis fans. Now they might not even turn up. A leaked message group of hundreds of taxi drivers reveals a plan to boycott Melbourne Park. One writing, "Please do not go to the tennis, it will make an impact." Another replying, "All 319 have to promise to take part." Drivers agreed with a thumbs up emoji.
I'll investigate that.
Last year, the Essential Services Commission approved an 11% increase in unbooked fares because of increased operating costs. But some cabbies are demanding even more from passengers.
I think it's opportunity, taking opportunities that's there and trying to make some money, which is not good for the crowd.
Uber prices are no better. Tennis fans have been forced to pay more than $150 for a trip to Craigieburn and close to $200 for a shorter ride to the airport.
And even if they're paying a surge with Uber, at least they know the price before they get in.
It is legal for Victorian cab drivers to turn off their meters and negotiate fares. The issue for many is the lack of transparency.
There is no question that the taxi industry is in bad shape, and because of the reforms of 2017. We can't put the genie back in the bottle, but we can certainly go back and tweak a few things.
Fans at the Grand Prix could face similar pain. Taxi drivers are discussing a boycott of Albert Park in April. But not all employees say they're taking part.
Just because a few rat bags ruin it for the rest of us. I mean, it's unfair. It's unfair.
The government is still resisting calls to change the rules. Beth and Yeoman, 7 News.
Gun violence has returned to Melbourne with a man shot multiple times in Deer Park. The victim was ambushed on Mount Derrimut Road just after 9 o'clock on Friday night. He suffered non-life-threatening injuries and is recovering in hospital. Investigators suspect it was a targeted attack which happened in a busy area. They're hoping witnesses come forward to help them track down the shooter.
The Andrews government is under pressure to refund more than $100 million to Victorian commuters. The money is from unused Myki cards, earning interest in state government accounts.
Tapped off and locked out. Your old or expired Myki card could be hiding big bucks.
I think it's very easy to start using the new card, put the old card away and then just forget about it.
More than 42 million Myki cards have been distributed since the system was launched in 2012, but just under 12 million are active today. That's left more than $100 million of unused money in the state government's pocket.
For the government to be profiting off the interest of that money that is Victorians' money, hard-earned money, it needs to make sure that it's going back into Victorians' pockets right away.
The Andrews government says it wants to see the forgotten funds returned to customers, but that could prove difficult.
They can probably refund the money back to people who had registered cards, but those unregistered cards might be sitting in the bottom drawer. No one knows who owns them.
Absolutely, the onus is on Victorians. Like I did a few months ago. You've got Myki cards. Go to your local train station. They could issue you with a new one and transfer the balance.
Myki's current contract runs out this November, but regardless of what comes next, commuters will be expecting significant improvements.
It's never been explained why the cards expire after 4 years. You would hope that the government is looking at cards that just don't expire so that we don't have this problem in the future.
Estelle Greepink, 7 News.
Rex Hunt has been taken to hospital after reportedly suffering a medical episode. The 73-year-old was driving towards Geelong when he pulled over. Police were called to a service station at Little River, and while there were no injuries, Hunt was taken to a Geelong hospital. Sam Newman says he's concerned for his friend and hopes he'll seek further help. Hunt has previously been open about his mental health battle.
3 young men have been arrested over a wild Chapel Street brawl. Sarah Jones has the details. And Sarah, the altercation spilled out onto the road.
Mike, the brawl unfolded in front of stunned onlookers in the early hours of this morning, with police saying up to 8 people became involved after an argument. The footage captured from inside a kebab store shows a group of men fighting outside a taxi before the scuffle spills out onto a busy Chapel Street. At one point, a man is kicked while he's held down in the gutter. Security guards from a nearby nightclub broke the fight up before police arrived on scene just after 5 a.m. So far, 2 men in their 20s have been charged, with a third man released by police. Mike?
Sarah Jones, thank you.
Severe storms are wreaking havoc across the state. A slow-moving thunderstorm is bringing heavy rain and hail in the north. 30 millimetres fell around Shepparton in just 20 minutes. The Weather Bureau is warning of flash flooding over the next few hours around Echuca and Mount Buller. There's a separate warning for another storm cell over the Gippsland area. The wild weather is expected to ease overnight. Sonia Marinelli will have the full forecast a little later in the hour.
Anthony Albanese is vowing to boost Australia's relationship with Beijing. The PM is even leaving the door open to visiting China later this year.
The year of the rabbit is here, bringing with it new opportunities and, according to Chinese culture, lots of good luck.
People are excited. The year of the rabbit, I think, is a good omen on a range of levels.
Anthony Albanese celebrated the Lunar New Year in Western Sydney today.
It's so positive. It's a chance where the community comes together. And what a great country Australia is.
And promised to rebuild what was once a great relationship with China.
We're hoping for further improvements, certainly.
Any plans on going there anytime?
Look, we'll wait to see how that plays out, but there's been a lot of positive moves in the relationship for both countries going forward.
Foreign Minister Penny Wong, who's of Chinese Malaysian heritage, welcomed the New Year in Adelaide last night. Her recent trip to Beijing has been hailed a diplomatic breakthrough as speculation grows that trade bans could soon be lifted.
China is an incredibly important trading partner with us, and we want that trading relationship to continue.
At a ceremony in Beijing, China's President Xi Jinping celebrated his country's rich history and promised a brighter future as the Chinese economy is smashed by a COVID wave.
The Chinese economy has just gone through one of its weakest quarters in growth for some decades.
Treasurer Jim Chalmers today warned that Australia's economy is tied to China's success, and while it's struggling now, things are looking up.
Most people expect the Chinese economy to recover and rebound relatively strongly and relatively quickly,
hoping the new year brings new growth. Jennifer Beshwati, 7 News.
New Zealand's next Prime Minister has been confirmed. Chris Hipkins was unanimously endorsed by Labor MPs in a caucus meeting in Wellington this afternoon. He'll replace Jacinda Ardern after she announced her resignation on Thursday. The 44-year-old Hipkins will become New Zealand's 41st Prime Minister when Ms Ardern leaves her post in the coming days.
Doctors are warning Victoria's elective surgery backlog is likely to take years to clear. The AMA claims it's yet to see any evidence the state can perform the additional 40,000 surgeries promised this year. Victoria has almost 135,000 patients still waiting for elective surgery. Public patients are facing delays of more than 2 years for spinal surgery. Medical staff say ongoing staff shortages in hospitals are making it impossible to play catch-up. Some hospitals are already operating throughout the night.
New details have just been released about King Charles's coronation. Buckingham Palace says it will take place on Saturday, May 6, with a solemn religious service at Westminster Abbey. Members of the royal family will then appear on the palace balcony. A concert will be held at Windsor Castle the following day, featuring some of the biggest entertainers on the planet. It's still unclear whether Prince Harry will be invited after his recent and highly publicised criticism of the royal family.
There's a new warning for Australians travelling to Peru after explosive riots in the South American nation. Dozens have been injured in clashes with police, leaving foreigners stranded at the popular tourist destination.
Tear gas, protesters, flames. Peru at war with itself again. Riot police have now crashed the country's biggest university with a degree of violence. 205 people have been cuffed and hauled away. Police shielding themselves from growing fury. Why are they killing us, she demands. 55 people have died in such clashes since December. Demonstrators are demanding fresh elections. The new president won't stand down. The former president is in jail, insisting he's still leader. Now this demonstrator says they're violating the right to protest. More than 300 foreigners are reportedly stranded here in the Machu Picchu citadel because trains have stopped. They'll be evacuated by foot, a 6-hour trek. Just before Christmas, more than 170 Australians were trapped by Peru's riots. Canberra can't say how many Australians are there now, but Foreign Affairs is warning travellers exercise a high degree of caution, reconsider going. The Peruvian government is telling tourists their tickets are still good for up to a month after the riots end, whenever that might be. Patrick Burns, 7 News.
Ukraine's president has joined mourners at a funeral for his interior minister and 13 others killed in a helicopter crash. In a video message, Volodymyr Zelensky read the names of those who died in the tragedy. Mr. Zelensky also met with families of the victims as the war rages. US intelligence now estimates up to 188,000 Russians have been killed in the battle.
Athletics champion Peter Bol is vowing to clear his name in the wake of bombshell doping allegations. The Olympic finalist is provisionally suspended after he failed an out-of-competition drug test. The 28-year-old claims he has no idea how it happened and has never used needles in his career. Bol says, "My understanding is that EPO is pretty hard to get and that you need to do it through a syringe, which is just outrageous." He faces a 4-year ban if his B sample is also returns a positive reading.
Melbourne is reaffirming its title as Australia's events capital, with tens of thousands lapping up a bumper weekend.
Ali Wicks is at the Midsummer Festival at Alexandra Gardens, and Ali, it's attracted visitors from across the nation.
Mike, the streets of Melbourne are buzzing with packed out summer events really taking over the city tonight. More than 100,000 people are expected here at the Midsummer Festival. 20,000 people are set to celebrate the Lunar New Year in Chinatown tonight, throw in record crowds at the Australian Open, and where else would you rather be but Melbourne?
Melbourne is living up to its name as the arts and sporting capital of Australia.
There is so much going on in Victoria right now.
As tens of thousands of people pack the city for 3 major events.
Welcome to Midsummer!
The annual Midsummer Festival expecting more than 100,000 people today. 250,000 visitors are due over the 3 weeks, with over 200 events across 120 venues.
It is a festival for everyone.
Crowds also took over Bourke Street for Lunar New Year, with the Year of the Rabbit for the Chinese community and Year of the Cat for the Vietnamese community.
Hundreds of thousands of people there this morning for all of the firecrackers and the lion dances, and the Millennial Dragon was out for the first time in 3 years.
Tennis also a smash hit. More than 94,000 packed Melbourne Park yesterday, and they're predicting even higher numbers today.
I've never seen it this packed before.
Such a good atmosphere.
The tennis alone injected close to $400 million into Victoria's economy last year.
For our traders, it means that they are really making up for the lost time during that pandemic period.
And there's still more entertainment to come. Mary Poppins begins at Her Majesty's Theatre on January 29. Moomba Long Weekend kicks off March 10, and the highly anticipated Australian Grand Prix begins on March 30.
We set the new record last year for a Grand Prix crowd anywhere in the world.
Midsummer Festival continues for the next 3 weeks at Alexandra Gardens.
Happy Midsummer!
Ellie Wicks, 7 News.
Well, Abby Gelmi is along with a preview of sport. Abby, there's been another boil-over at the Australian Open.
Well, Beck, the top seeds continue to tumble at Melbourne Park. The women's world #1 is packing her bags tonight, leaving the draw wide open. An Aussie star hits Cricket Australia for 6 over its Australia Day schedule. A divine race in Adelaide as an Aussie takes out the Tour Down Under. And what caused the ref to hit pause on this Premier League match? All that and more, we've got the Big Bash action too.
OK, thanks, Abby. One of Hollywood's biggest stars has shut down the Sydney Harbour Bridge for 7 hours. Details are up next on 7 News.
Also ahead, an accused drunk drivers die swift death.
Revolutionary care for some of Melbourne's sickest patients.
A birthday celebration out of this world for 93-year-old astronaut Buzz Aldrin.
And after a beautiful weekend, some scorching summer heat returns. I'll have your full forecast after sport.
Detectives are looking to unmask a trio of thieves accused of using a stolen ID to con victims out of thousands of dollars. The men faked their identity to hire a Richmond apartment in November and fled without paying. They also used the ID to steal a car in Pakenham worth almost $40,000. Police have released images of 3 men wanted for questioning and the stolen 2010 Ford Focus sedan.
An accused drunk driver and her passenger have survived a terrifying crash in Brisbane. The 41-year-old lost control of her sedan, hitting a parked vehicle street sign and then a fence. Nearby residents ran to help, with police and paramedics also called to assist. Neither needed to be taken to hospital. The driver was charged and will front court next month.
The Sydney Harbour Bridge was shut down for 7 hours today as Hollywood superstar Ryan Gosling filmed a series of stunts.
It's part of his latest blockbuster movie, showcasing Australia to the world.
Ryan Gosling has the smouldering looks that can stop traffic. Normally, that is just an expression. But for 7 hours from 3 a.m, the Sydney Harbour Bridge closed to Sydney. Very few can steal the bridge's limelight like this man. There were animated conversations between takes, and they did not always go to plan. With limited time, the crews shot it from multiple angles, from a mobile crane, a tracking shot on a motorbike, several cameras inside a moving car, a drone zipped along the bridge too, and a helicopter. Its pilot is based in Hollywood and accustomed to working with movie stars, so perhaps for them, the Harbour Bridge was the star today.
Normally we charge for autographs and things, but just shots, it's all good.
42-year-old Gosling acknowledged our helicopter crew with a smile and a wave. Fans were certainly hoping for the same.
He is so pretty, and also he's a really good actor.
Made the mistake of watching Crazy Stupid Love the other night, so once we heard Ryan was in town, that was it.
Paddy and Oliver normally ride across the bridge. Today, they had to take the train.
This is cool.
A tracking shot worthy of the Fall Guy production itself and worthy of a photo. The world's sexiest man, and in the background, Ryan Gosling.
We thought it was a stunt double, and then when we got off, we chatted to some other people, and apparently that was him, so...
Drivers were warned to stay away.
No traffic at all, a bit eerie actually, a bit spooky.
I don't believe it's a good idea.
I don't see an issue with it this time in the morning.
Closing the bridge is rare, from protest marches, an Olympic torch relay, bridge anniversaries, to the more frivolous, a Mark Webber hot lap and promotion for Mad Max Fury Road.
While the Fall Guy is obviously being filmed in Sydney, this sequence suggests at least some of it will be set in Sydney too. They could have chosen any road to film this, but this road is quite recognisable.
The New South Wales government paid $14 million for the movie to be shot here and expects publicity to generate a $244 million return.
Check the we pay them to close our bridge.
I'm talking about investment attraction funds so that films are made in Sydney.
But politics and traffic inconvenience aside, maybe this was just cool.
His biggest fan.
Biggest ever?
Yes.
Robert Ovadia, 7 News.
Melbourne's sickest patients can now receive revolutionary care at their bedsides. The Alfred Hospital's ICU is the only one in the country with a portable CT scanner, helping doctors save time and lives.
This portable CT scanner is changing the way our most critically ill patients are treated.
We're the first hospital in Australia to use one in an ICU.
Doctors say being able to perform scans by the bedside is safer and more efficient.
Getting answers about swelling and bleeding in the brain in minutes rather than hours. Whenever the patients are moved out of their cubicle in the ICU, there's a risk of the life support equipment being disconnected, lines being sort of tugged or pulled. So this way everything stays in its place.
The Alfred treats around 3,000 ICU patients each year. Almost half require a CT scan, most for trauma or stroke. The motorised machine, imported from the States, weighs close to 800 kilos and was paid for through $900,000 worth of fundraising.
There are some hospitals in America that are saying that they're saving $2.5 million a year from not having to get staff to bring patients down into radiology.
The Alfred has spent 7 years to get the CT scanner here, and it's proving so successful. It's hoped governments will eventually fund the machine in other hospitals.
We had to work really closely with the radiation regulator. We've had to make sure that it's safe for all the other patients and staff and even visitors in that ICU area when a scan is being performed.
Sarah Jones, 7 News.
Legendary astronaut Buzz Aldrin has married for the 4th time on his 93rd birthday. He revealed he'd wed his longtime love, Dr. Anke Fayeur. She is 30 years his junior. Aldrin was one of the pilots on Apollo 11 and also became the second person to walk on the moon. More and more Melbourne teenagers are fighting an addiction to the internet. Up next, the latest advice for parents.
Also ahead on 7 News, a desperate search for survivors after a deadly boat crash.
Breakthrough new help for diabetes patients.
And beachgoers caught up in a terrifying cliff collapse.
There are growing concerns for an elderly man now missing for close to 24 hours. Raymond was last seen on Buckley Street in Footscray around 9 last night. His family and police are worried because the 69-year-old has dementia. He was wearing a blue jumper and black pants. He also uses a walking frame.
One woman has been killed and another is missing after a tragic boat crash south of Perth. The vessel hit a red postmarker, throwing the people on board into the water. It happened around 10 last night, with a major search for the 52-year-old woman continuing today. A 47-year-old man, believed to be the skipper, was rushed to hospital in a stable condition.
A new study is lifting the lid on internet addiction and the debilitating impact it's having on Victorian teenagers. Researchers spent 4 years compiling the report to help parents tackle a Gen Z problem.
In a world where technology is all around us, it's easy to overlook the impact on our youngest Australians.
Videos, TikToks, just stuff to make my day.
That's why we're out today, is to get her out of her bedroom and off her phone.
Researchers have found teenagers who feel well supported by their parents are more likely to struggle with internet addiction.
These are very basic things like listening to your child when they're upset, providing advice to them around decisions that they might be making, basically being there for them.
All important qualities to share, but it seems it isn't enough.
Parents might unwittingly not be providing them with perhaps the kinds of boundaries that are required for this pretty challenging engagement that we all have with the online world.
And compulsive internet use can take its toll to a point where users feel anxious, low and unsatisfied when they aren't online. The 4-year study was originally designed for researchers to explore whether better social support at home stopped compulsive internet use. It found the opposite was true. To help protect children, the recommendations are to restrict screen time, not use devices an hour before bed, and put phones away during family time.
If you set the guidelines from when they're young, they won't know any different, really.
Sarah Jones, 7 News.
A woman's been arrested after fatally shooting her terminally ill husband inside a Florida hospital. The 76-year-old then barricaded herself in his room for hours. Police used explosives and non-lethal rounds to enter and arrest her.
Apparently, because he was terminally ill, they had a conversation about it, and they actually planned this approximately 3 weeks ago, that if he continued to take a turn for the worse, that he wanted her to end this. She now faces charges of first-degree murder. Onlookers have captured the incredible moment a section of cliff collapsed in San Diego. It was estimated to be more than 70 metres wide and 7 metres in height. It comes after weeks of rain and winter storms. No one was injured during the incident. The area had to be cordoned off.
A new automated device is helping type 1 diabetics better control their glucose levels. It combines a traditional pump with a high-tech app and is now available for patients of all ages.
A little device making a big difference.
It has changed my life.
Nikki has been living with type 1 diabetes for nearly 20 years.
The biggest struggle with diabetes management is actually the mental load of it.
But a new tool is making life a lot easier. She's using Ipsomed's automated insulin dosing system.
It is unlike anything we've ever had available to us in the Australian market before.
There's a number of insulin pumps, but this is the first one that's controlled by your app.
Developed at Cambridge University, the app continuously reads the patient's blood glucose, then calculates how much insulin is needed and when. Users still need to enter data at mealtimes.
It gives you better glycemic control, but with far less work for the patient.
When I started work, it was needles and syringes. Now we've moved up and up the scale of pumps. So this new pump is another step up.
The system is available to all age groups, including children 1 and above, who are typically the most difficult to manage.
I honestly wish it could have been around for my parents. I can only imagine how much easier it would have made their lives at the time.
It's fully reimbursed via private health funds, and the consumables are reimbursed by the federal government in the National Diabetes Services Scheme.
making treatment less of a challenge. Georgia Holland, 7 News.
Australia has said its last goodbye to Sir Elton John with the Rocketman's final show in Brisbane last night. The music legend signed off the Yellow Brick Road tour with some of his biggest hits. The Melbourne show was filled with controversy after Molly Meldrum gate crashed the stage. Elton John will now head to New Zealand before retiring next year. Soaring prices across Melbourne are putting record strain on renters. The latest insight is up next on 7 News.
Plus, Extinction Rebellion protesters target one of Australia's biggest sporting events.
Meet the teenagers turning their hobbies into big business.
And a music superstar's show-stopping $35 million performance.
Melbourne's rental crisis is deepening, with new data revealing the average tenant is spending more than a third of their weekly wage on keeping a roof over their head. The average price of a house is now $480 a week, with the average wage around $1,300. Single renters paying $390 a week or more are facing rental stress, but Melbourne is still the country's most affordable city.
Medical experts are warning most antiviral medicines are proving ineffective against newer strains of COVID-19. While vaccines continue to protect against severe illness, a study found popular antibody drugs aren't holding up against the latest Omicron variants. The only clear exception was the oral treatment Paxlovid. It's prompted calls for new antivirals to be developed to safeguard the most vulnerable in the community.
Extinction Rebellion protesters have vandalised innocent businesses as part of their attack on the main sponsor of the tour Down Under. The group glued themselves to the Santos building and splashed paint over the windows. A cafe was collateral damage.
Hey, hey, ho, ho. Dirty Santos has to go.
I understand what they're trying to push, but they have to find better ways of handling it. Think about the small businesses around them.
2 people have been reported to police for property damage.
Victorian children have been putting their school holidays to good use, with many launching their own business ventures.
It's estimated there are now tens of thousands of young entrepreneurs in Australia making hundreds of dollars every week.
She's only 11, but Sophia Squires has found her recipe for success. Running a business from her family's kitchen, making dog cookies.
I started Perfect Treats because I wanted to give the treats to my dogs and I wanted to make them do really cool tricks. And I also thought maybe this could be a business.
She sells the products online, posting ads for free on neighbourhood network Nextdoor.
I think she has this dream of wanting to own her own company when she's older. So this is a fabulous way to start and just learn how to, what's involved.
Also starting up a school holiday venture. 14-year-old Carlito Vesley riding the streets with his mower in tow, trimming lawns, earning a cut of up to $80 per job.
I just wanted to really have a side hustle, not work a job, and make some money while I'm young.
Small Business Australia estimates there are tens of thousands of teen tycoons.
If you have a go, you will grow. It's going to help you at school and it's going to provide a whole bunch of opportunities as you get older.
A recent Nextdoor survey found more than 80% of people want to spend their money locally, supporting small businesses like cafes and helping teenagers like Tim clean up and make some extra cash.
Supporting young kids around the area, getting out of bed and getting a great job done. So I really appreciate him doing it.
Washing enough cars to buy some new toys of his own.
I bought a bike with the money.
Young entrepreneurs with big ideas giving new meaning to the term small business. Josh Martin, 7 News.
The Queen of R&B has returned to the stage for the first time in 4 years. She was reportedly paid $35 million for a 1-hour performance at the Atlantic Royal Hotel in Dubai. Egyptian-themed violinists started the performance before Beyoncé performed Etta James at last. The singer is yet to announce her next highly anticipated tour for her latest album, Renaissance. Good coin. Abby, tell me back with Sunday Night Sport. Abby, the upsets continue at Melbourne Park.
Well, Beck, the women's world number 1, Iga Swiatek, is out, but Novak Djokovic held on to book a showdown with Aussie Alex de Minaur. Plus, fans get bang for their bucket hats in the Big Bash as Steve Smith cashes in despite a back injury. The barnstorming Aussie on the brink of a Super Bowl berth. And the stunt that forced officials to press pause in the Premier League. Welcome back. Only Novak Djokovic is standing in the way of Aussie Alex de Minaur making his first quarter-final at Melbourne Park. The hamstrung champ limped to a straight sets victory over Grigor Dimitrov, and for the first time in 55 years, there won't be a top 4 seed in the quarter-finals after world number 1 Iga Swiatek crashed out.
Australia's last hope at Melbourne Park, the Demon has his best shot at taking down a tennis god.
Finish. Djokovic straining every sinew.
It's really a roller coaster, honestly. It requires a lot of energy that is being spent from my side, mentally and physically as well.
Novak Djokovic's troublesome hamstring just holding on through his third-round clash with Grigor Dimitrov.
I'll take it match by match. I don't know what awaits, but I do hope and I have faith for the best.
Another triumph after 3 hours and 3 sets. Now, a first ever matchup with the Demon.
The atmosphere will be electric and he's going to have a lot of support.
Alexei Popyrin's run ended against Ben Shelton. Not that he'd change a thing.
What's happened in the last month, I have had my best experiences as a professional player.
Andy Murray, hip replacement and all.
Welcome to the Murray Madhouse.
His epic 4 a.m. finish with Thanasi Kokkinakis, too draining. Down in 4 sets to Roberto Bautista Agut, this time maybe his last in Melbourne.
You never know exactly when the end is going to be. I would like to go out playing tennis like this.
Today, a wipeout for the women's favourites.
The top seed is out.
World number 1 Iga Swiatek falling to Wimbledon champ Elena Rybakina. Teen star Coco Gauff's shot at a maiden Grand Slam ended by Yelena Ostapenko.
Into the quarterfinals she goes. Coco Gauff exits.
The son of a gun following his champion dad.
In the footsteps of the father, quarter is into the quarters.
A 5-set win over 10th seed Hubert Hurkacz. Sebastian Korda's first time in the last 8. James Manton, 7 News.
Steve Smith is confident a back injury won't disrupt his preparations for next month's tour of India. He's in stunning form, scoring another century for the Sixers last night, while the Melbourne Stars faltered against Brisbane.
The story of the Stars' Big Bash.
Not going to get it. The Heat jump into 3rd place.
Last 4 losers ensuring a last place finish. From ball 1, the Stars' fielding left plenty to be desired.
Edge and dropped. What is going on?
Marnus failed to make them pay, and Matt Renshaw burnt himself.
That's close if it hits, gone.
Sam Hain left to do the damage with a destructive 73. Last night, Steve Smith defied injury.
200s in a row for Steve Smith.
9 sixes in his unbeaten 125 under duress.
I just had some spasming this afternoon. I just twinged it in the nets before plays. But yeah, it's a bit stiff, but hopefully I'll pull up okay tomorrow.
Another white ball statement to selectors. Now 262 runs from 3 Big Bash innings. More than Warner, Head, Khawaja and Labuschagne combined this tournament. Warner dished out digs.
How are you, champion? Hey, don't chant me, mate. Don't chant me, mate.
Before he was out for 16 in a heavy Thunder loss. And Indigenous star Ash Gardner has hit out at Cricket Australia, saying the scheduled game on the 26th of January certainly doesn't sit well with me. That date was the beginning of genocide, massacres and dispossession. Gardner will play the match against Pakistan, hoping to educate others on Indigenous cultures. Mitch Cleary, 7 News.
Tonight, the Renegades look to book a finals berth when they take on the Scorchers. The coverage starts after the news. Cyclist Jay Vine believes he can conquer the Grand Tours after today's 11-second win in the Tour Down Under. The Aussie held on to Britain's Simon Yates on the final climb, but it wasn't enough to work up a thirst.
I only like 2 drinks, so maybe not. But yeah, if there's Kilkenny at the restaurant we go to, absolutely.
The 27-year-old is already a dual stage winner on the Tour of Spain. Melbourne Victory remain winless in 2023, going down to Perth 3-1. Both sides were reduced to 10 men in a minute of madness. Chris Economides and Jack Clisby were both shown red cards after a nasty incident, but Victory equalised early in the second half, but a late double to Adam Taggart sealed the cellar dwellers' fate.
And it's all gone wrong for the Melbourne Victory custodians.
Melbourne City squandered a chance to extend their lead at the top of the table, forced to settle for a 0-0 draw with Brisbane Roar. The Premier League match between Southampton and Aston Villa had to be stopped when a drone flew over the stadium.
Rather bizarre circumstances, and the players have to be taken off for safety until it can be clarified just who is operating that drone.
Jurgen Klopp's 1000th game in charge of Liverpool didn't go to script. Chelsea was denied an early opener by the VAR before the match ended in a 0-0 draw. Aussie Jordan Mailata is just one win away from going to the Super Bowl. The offensive tackle put his 165-kilogram frame to good use as the Eagles crushed the Giants 38-7.
That juice, man, the swag. Jordan's got a ton of swag, so, you know, he's always showing it out on the field.
A huge scare for Kansas City's $650 million quarterback Patrick Mahomes, carrying an ankle injury. He led the Chiefs home 27-20 over the Jaguars. And the Diamonds have come from 9 goals down to record a 61-55 win over England in the Quad Series opener.
Yeah, it was a bit of a messy game, up and down, but look, we're proud of the win, and you've got to take those wins when you can. Really proud that we had that fight to get the win.
The Aussie next face the New Zealand Silver Ferns tomorrow morning. We're looking forward to looking at that in South Africa.
OK, thanks, Abby. Sonia Marinelli is back with the weather. And Son, it was another beautiful day here in Melbourne.
Yeah, capping a perfect weekend, Mike, but that summer heat isn't far away, and I'll have the details next. Hello again. It was another beautiful day here in Melbourne, but just like yesterday, thunderstorms have been firing to our north with a large area of the state under threat from severe weather. I'll have more on that in a moment. Melbourne, though, still under a southerly wind. That's been keeping the air above us nice and stable. And from tomorrow, we are looking forward to some warmer weather. There was lots of blue sky today, the air slightly humid, the temperature in the city rising to a top of 23 before a sea breeze kicked in. We reached 25 in Essendon, Scoresby 28 degrees, Geelong 25. And the breeze this evening still coming out of the south with the risk of storms only up in the nearby hills. So for most of us here, a fairly uneventful night in the city. Tonight's low 17 degrees. But of course, right now we do have severe thunderstorms moving across central and eastern districts. Bendigo, Echuca, Rochester and Warragul tonight, just some of the locations under threat. These storms are producing bursts of heavy rain and hail as well, so that is causing some chaos on the roads. The storms are forecast to die down over the next few hours. Otherwise, it was a warm and humid end to our week. The combination of high pressure down to our south and a trough over Victoria and New South Wales is pulling in all of that unstable air into the picture. We're staying in this pattern until Wednesday, so the next few afternoons could very well turn stormy again. Not here in the city. There's only a small chance of showers here over the next 7 days. The main feature of our weather this week is the summer heat. It is back on track as we dial up the temperature, especially as we head towards the end of this other week. To the forecast now, the trough bringing showers to Sydney, Canberra, also down in Hobart. Nice and settled though over in Adelaide and Perth. Here in Victoria, tomorrow's weather generally dry and warm, but again we are expecting isolated showers and those thunderstorms to spark up during the evening, especially about the eastern ranges. Winds will be light and variable with an afternoon sea breeze down along the coast. Closer in, we'll start with some fog about the nearby hills. Then it's partly cloudy and dry, but there is a slight chance of a shower or a storm in the afternoon. A light southeasterly breeze taking us to 27 in most spots, 28 if you're in Frankston. So a very relaxed start to our week on the weather front under a light breeze. Lots of sunshine. We are heading for a top 27 degrees here in the city. Tuesday is just as nice, a top of 26. 6. We're up to 29 on Wednesday, down to 23 on Thursday, back to 26 degrees on Friday. Then we're jumping to that top of 35 degrees on Saturday, ahead of a cool change. Sunday at this stage, cloudy and 28 degrees. But this is what we are looking forward to tomorrow, another beautiful day. Beck, Mike, thankfully we are missing out on all of that storm activity. It's all happening to our north.
Yeah, it looks good. Thanks, Don. And that's 7 News for this Sunday. We're live to Optus Stadium next for the Melbourne Renegades and Perth Scorchers.
For now, from the 7 News team, take care. Good night.